Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the first Swiss Supply Chain and Logistics Conference for the first time in Zurich. We're very pleased to be here in the economic capital of Switzerland. My name is Bernard Schopfer, and I'm the founder of this conference that has been organized by my colleague Ina Maltseva at the end of the room that you've all spoken to, I suppose. We have two very exciting days of conferences and presentations ahead. And I'd like to thank in advance all those of you who are going to contribute to the success of this event. A big thank you to our partners who make this event possible, and especially to Accenture, Kearney, Dassault Systems, SAP, and Tata Consultancy Services, who have all joined us as partners. Some practical information before we start this event. We have developed an app specially for this event. This is the QR code. We invite you to download it. This app will allow you to network together, to organize personal meetings with other delegates, to see the latest changes in the program. I hope there won't be any, but in case. Or to ask live questions during all the presentations. So just follow the instructions. You have little boards on each of the tables with the instructions. Basically, you download the QR code and you follow the instruction. It's very simple. At the same time, we want this conference to be lively and interactive, so don't hesitate to raise your hand like in the good old days before all these apps, and we will hand you a microphone, and we'll be happy to have a conversation with our chairman and you. Some health and safety measures. There are boards all over the hotel with precise indications, so just have a look at them. Fire exits are indicated. I'm not very good at an airplane steward, but you can see that. And best is that if you have any questions or so, you just ask us. Coffee break and lunch breaks will be served in these rooms at the back with the possibility to use the terrace if it's not too hot. Let's hope so. And also make sure to stay with us tonight at the end of the conference, because we're going to have a post-event drinks reception, informal drinks reception, and that should be nice and friendly. One last word before we get started to introduce you to our organizing team, to the key people in our organizing team. Ina Maltseva has been creating this conference, putting all the content in place and gathering all the speakers. So a big thank you to Ina for all your hard work. Alexander Sidorec will be our chairman for the entire conference. Alexander is advisory partner at Industry 4.0, IoT, Cognizant. We're in very good hands. Alexander knows the subject inside out and has been very helpful also in the build-up to the conference. So a big thank you to you for all your support. All right, I think that's it. I thank you all for being here with us today. And I wish you all a very good conference. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. It's great to see everyone here and some people still on the way. It's our second edition. So the first edition was taking place last year. It's nearly 1 year ago. That took place in Geneva. And, that time we had talked a lot about the COVID, logistic bottlenecks, and we still already were getting a feeling that a better future is coming. Then this year brought some other surprises to us, right? So we are basically going back into the kind of the chaos mode, right? And we are talking about the new generation of challenges driven by geopolitical risks and so on. So the power of the community and the power of the network that we have here is opportunity to learn from each other, to share the pain points, to share the use cases, the learnings, so that we can facilitate transformation and all the challenges that we are facing today in the modern business. And I certainly look forward for the 2 engaging days today, and thanks a lot to all the participants, all the speakers, panel facilitators that are basically making this happen. So when it comes to the structure of the day, we will have 3 presentations until the coffee break taking place at 10:30. After that, we are having a few more presentations until 12:20, and then we go for the lunch. You can switch to the lunch mode on your mobile devices. and to the remaining 6 and 7 presentations that will go until 6 p.m. I encourage you to stay after 6 o'clock, right? Because it will give the opportunity for the networking. We will have a paro session, and you will have the opportunity to exchange all your key learnings of the day and some of the reflections. So I look forward for quite exciting day today, and that you take maximum out of it. So with this, we will be opening the today's session with Fabian Streif, so Head of Business and Economic Development from the Canton of Zurich. You know, Canton of Zurich is hosting a number of multinational, regional, and local players. I would say supply chain hub, not important, not just from the country perspective, but also from regional perspective. And Fabian will basically share the information about the ecosystem, what are the initiatives that are taking place in the canton. So I certainly look forward for exciting session. Thank you, Fabian.
Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Canton of Zurich, warm welcome here today, luckily in an air-conditioned room. So it gives me great pleasure to share with you some thoughts on supply chain and logistics from an economic development perspective. But first of all, I want to thank to the organizers for the invitation, and it's a great honor to see this conference happening here today in Zurich. The title I was given is probably a very ambitious one, Zurich as a global hub, but obviously we have some arguments as Switzerland, where we are important destinations for goods, which also partly explain kind of the Swiss cliché. Despite bitcoins and other cryptos, gold still remains one of the very important commodities, especially in times of inflation. And Switzerland is an important hub, as you probably know, for import and export, and around 40% of the world's refinery capacities are located in Switzerland, mainly in Western Switzerland and Ticino. Two other goods that contribute to this kind of Swiss cliché are obviously chocolate and partly coffee. Switzerland is a powerhouse for the coffee business, which around 70% of the trading volume, directly or indirectly, taking place here in Switzerland. And the chocolate business, we have Barry Callebaut as headquartered in Zurich, as one of the biggest companies in high-quality chocolate and cocoa products. But you probably know all that, and also you know that Zurich is the heart of Europe. When we are not hearing clear the sky and nothing's working like last week. So I think the airport is very important for this location, and we are really lucky that there is a pretty successful development before the pandemic and hopefully now again. But we have also seen the vulnerability last week that we face with digitalization. And obviously we have to deal with not only opportunities, but also the challenges that are taking place with this kind of development. Currently, I mean, on the right-hand side, I think, you know, we Swiss like to build tunnels, and I think we're proud about the NEAT and all the things that are now really done with connecting kind of Europe through this project, which took years to happen, but I think now is really bringing advantages not only to us as a kind of person commuting, but also to all the supply chain and logistics questions that we have in Switzerland. Currently, as we have already heard, there is little joy for kind of when you look at the global economy and challenges we face. At the WEF, we have heard from Professor Stiglitz when he spoke about inflation, and he painted a pretty gloomy picture when it comes to the restart of the economy afterwards. The NZZ, Neue Zürcher Zeitung, recently asked Swiss SMEs where they see the biggest pain points. While many see sustainability as an opportunity, I think it's not a surprise the reliability of the supply chain is the biggest concern also the SMEs have. This had already become apparent. Also for me, months ago, we had kind of to wait for a very long time for a new dishwasher, washer, and I can tell you this is not fun. One reason certainly was this one, but it was of course a combination of several factors and behaviors. One is the lack of diversification, global diversification. So if you think about microchips, mainly manufactured in Taiwan, this was or still is a bit of a challenge. I think we all try to tackle with projects. But not only the lack of global diversification, but also the domestic one. In the US, there was a kind of a baby milk shortage because there was just one big supplier, which really brought some trouble or challenges for the US, and among Switzerland helped out with baby milk. In addition, the car industry cut off orders during the pandemic, with the result that manufacturers of chips decided to go to other sectors, with the result that still now the car industry is struggling to get enough of the chips. Then we have the Ukrainian crisis and China rethinking the supply chain in the coming years, also according to Professor Stiglitz. So I think that's definitely a challenge we see, because China is having access to raw materials with a kind of importance for the global world, not only China. So, and if China really can't control them, this enforce probably a geopolitical conflict. And we might see it coming also for Europe, but it will be very hard to react. Now for the SME, I mean, the concern of SMEs are entirely justified. As this chart shows, on the left-hand side, you see that 1/3 of the sea freight goods are on time. And compared to the just about 80% we have seen a few years ago, this is definitely one reason that explains also the fear that SMEs have. And on the right-hand side, the air freight market, there it's a bit more regional and industry-specific as far as I understood, but it would be interesting to hear about you, what your experiences are. But here we see, obviously, again, the car industry as one of the struggling industries among others, and live animals. Maybe you can explain why, but I've seen that these are the two ones that are really struggling. Well, so how can Swiss SMEs react on that one? And outsourcing and offshoring is an important topic for them. For roughly half of the companies on the top one, as you can see. Onshoring or domestic relocation is even more important. That's the second one. But the most considered reaction, however, is nearshoring, especially to Eastern Europe. So we can assume that there will be a substantial shift here, and some countries also will benefit out of this. The question will be how this step will affect the prices, and obviously prices will affect the inflation rate. For my second part of the speech, I would like to focus a bit more on the topic of logistics and how we want to solve the following challenge for Zurich. By 2040, sorry. So they switch off this one. I hope it's better now. So by 2040, we'll have to transport 56 tons of goods per person and year, which obviously is much more than we see today with 45 tons. And at the same time, there is less logistics space in the city of Zurich. Therefore, there is an intention to move goods under the kind of congestion belt, and that's what you kind of see here, that there will be a city hub, and for there the goods could be transported to the wholesalers, micro hubs and construction sites, and from there to the end customers or pickup stations. One potential solution is cargo souterrain, a private initiative to kind of solve the first issue of having all these traffic jams and not bringing logistics on time. And in the agglomeration, that would be a potential solution with a kind of reliable transport systems that reduces the traffic above the ground through going underneath, and at the same time bring kind of storage space. Because this private funded project would work with 3 lanes, as you can see on the bottom line, and deliveries from the hubs are coordinated instead of each supplier then delivering their good individually. The first section of this project connects Herkingen, which is a probably well-known logistics place in Switzerland, with Zurich from 2031. And then there will be a remaining section that will be ready built by 2045. So as I mentioned for NEAT, this is a project that needs not only money but also time, but potentially it can really help and solve one of the issues we have with city logistics if we can combine it with the second one, which is kind of how can we bring the goods from the hubs, the city hubs, to the end customers. And the idea of having autonomous vehicles could help to really make the distribution in the early morning hours. But as you may know, there are still some questions regards with regulation. But in the end, I think this is the way to go with having this kind of silent autonomous vehicles that can help to bring the goods there. And in regard to net zero, which is also a topic, we could think of this combined version of having a transport module during the night and a personal mobility solution during the day. So it's a combination of both, which is also a nice project. This is a concept car. But in Germany, they are really having an R&D project on this one, and they have now the first project pilot ones already. And I think that could be a great combination to really use all the capacities we are building for the step to the micro hubs. And from the micro hubs to the end customers, the cargo bikes are obviously one option that we see as net zero solution. And there are some promising systems you probably have seen maybe in Germany already. This is a solution from there. And also here we have some regulation issues like different standards, which doesn't make it easy to bring them into Switzerland. But I think these are questions that can be solved and definitely would help to really solve the puzzle of city logistics here. So with that, I think we are in the deep topic of innovation and how we can make logistics more sustainable. And one initiative that I would like to briefly present is the Cleantech Innovation Hub that just recently started in Dietikon. It's an initiative that is initiated by Limeco, Planzer and EKZ, really focusing on cleantech solutions. And as you may know, ETH is very successful in fostering innovation with spin-offs. We have Climeworks, we have Synhelion with this kind of power-to-gas solution. But with regards to mobility, we hope to see more solutions out of not only ETH, but out of this Cleantech Hub, where different actors can come together and really have projects that can solve part of the questions I just have raised before. But it's not only the Cleantech Hub, which is really focusing on this aspect of green mobility. It's also the Innovation Park in Dübendorf, which is using an old military airfield that has recently been on the way to being developed into an innovation park. And the size is pretty impressive. So it will be, in a first phase, 360,000 square meters of floor space. And then there still can be a second phase. So there is a massive space, not only for R&D of ETH, universities and others, and obviously companies, but also for the testing. And the idea is to really combine kind of the airfield that will be still there with testing, flights, drones, but also autonomous systems on the ground, all nearby to really make this happening as a great project, which should have international importance for Switzerland and also for the topics of robotics and mobility. With that, I'm already in the topic of academic partners, which are important, and I would like to highlight one project which is kind of 2 years old, which is the ETH AI Center. So ETH, like for 20 years, they are successfully doing R&D in artificial intelligence, and AI is very important also for autonomous systems and definitely for solutions in mobility. But to develop trustfully AI, they realize that they have to bring all the different actors together in a kind of interdisciplinary way. And that's why they initiated the ETH AI Center with already 110 professors and also a very competitive fellowship program. Out of 800 applicants, they had picked 25. So it's really internationally a well-regarded project and already one of the biggest AI centers worldwide. And I think AI is not only for the academic partners important, it's also for the government, a topic that we have to understand. And that's why I lastly want to briefly present this project, which is the AI Sandbox. So it's a project that is with different partners from the academic sectors, but also from the private sectors with Swiss ICT and other cantons. So the idea is really to kind of offer a playground for AI solutions. They can test and they get access to data, but also they can raise regulatory questions, which we try to solve together with the academic partners, mainly the university. And we don't want to only help the project, but we would like to learn like what means smart regulation in AI that really foster innovation, because I think a bit like with blockchain, it's very important for Switzerland to have these kind of smart regulations that help to build trustfully AI and to make a difference also in application in supply chain and logistics. With that, I would like to thank you for your attention and would like to give back. Thank you.
Any questions? I think it's a great example how Canton is actively driving the evolution of ecosystem to enable shift into the new generation of technologies that are basically benefiting the logistics and supply chain operations. Anyone else wants to ask any question to Fabian? Any points? One point for the SMEs, right? Because you mentioned the realization of different challenges. Wouldn't it come that through those challenging times, right, that we've been facing in the industry over the past few years, actually SMEs rethinking the role of supply chain in their operations, right? Could it be that actually supply chain was not, as a discipline, was not in the priority in their organization, right? And now suddenly the crisis time fostered them, oh, we need really to think, we need to build the capabilities, we need access to the talent. What would be your reflection on that based on the data and the conversations that you're having with SMEs?
I would say difference really on the size of the SMEs. I wouldn't say that SMEs were not prepared for kind of supply chain questions. No, definitely they are still doing or have done their homework. But I would just say that it definitely was a game changer, what we have seen in the last months and years. And especially for SMEs, this can be a really challenge time. And that's why they now really bring more attention to this topic. But obviously, it depends a bit what size of SMEs we are thinking of, and the small ones definitely haven't seen this one in the same way. And I would say they are rethinking the role in like, what does it mean if globalization is changing in a way that we are as a kind of domestic supplier for the bigger ones? If they change, what do we have to change? And now also sustainability questions are coming in, because I would say the big ones are very fit in with regards to sustainability questions. But the smaller SMEs obviously have these kind of challenges and digitalization. So it's the sum of these factors that make it probably hard for SMEs. But I wouldn't say that they are not prepared, but now they really have to put more management attention on these topics.
So let me announce the next speaker, Carlos Giavaroni, VP Industrial IoT Solutions at Schneider Electric. So Carlos will share Schneider Electric's point of view in terms of the manufacturing excellence, what they see as a trend, and how the technology is shaping the modern agenda. Please.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. It's really great and a great pleasure to be here with you, speaking, give you some thoughts on IoT-enabled manufacturing excellence. A bit of word on myself. So I'm a Vice President of Industrial IoT Solutions. So we built digital solutions, applications on top of our install base in industrial automation, but also energy management. So a word on Schneider Electric, just for reference for everyone. So we provide energy and automation digital solutions for sustainability and efficiency. That's what we do. We're about 29, almost 30 billion business these days, globally, evenly spread across the globe. Anywhere 120,000 people across. It's two main businesses I describe: industrial automation, but also energy management, meaning that we don't produce energy, but we actually provide equipments and systems to provide electricity more efficiently across different industries. Digital certainly disrupt many industries, as you know, as all of you are super aware of, and it's all about efficiency and more sustainability these days. I won't go through all the statistics that more and more you see out there. Is been old-fashioned, I would say, but there's always constantly two converging points. So first, the market potential, the business impact potential, is indisputably big across the board. Second, which proved to be, since those statistics is out there for a long time, they're always, the value to be captured is taking more time than expected. That's also a converging element. And that's why there's so much pressure for now in this type of industries for scalability. So how you move from this nice pilot or so-called pilot purgatory to actually something that is scale and brings a massive sustainable impact. And of course, cope to all connectivity and digitization, there's also other fields that helps capturing those values in terms of a benefit, which is big data, different fields of artificial intelligence, machine learning, which is really enabling this type of outstanding, let's say, returns. And that's the trends that we've seen. But let's make no mistake, there are a lot of challenges the industry sees. So first is the connectivity technologies is not fully deployed. And even we see that in mature countries, mature economies. It's not evenly distributed. You see also major countries with challenges around connectivity. I'll make a review about what happened with the airspace last week. So you see that, okay, the infrastructure is there, but there are glitches, we have challenges, and we have to face that. Second point, and here we have the specialists in the room, is the supply chain. So these figures that I have here, the 94% impact of companies' impact in supply chain is a figure from Fortune on end of 2020. So if you think about end of 2020 up to now, you can imagine those figures. Perhaps there's better statistics than that. But you see how our industries and our lives are being impacted by that. Sustainability, more and more, I'll be touching about this point a little bit later on as well. But industries is where we face, it's impacted 30+% of contribution with CO2 emission. And the market is expected to address that seriously now. And finally, which is, in my view, this is definitely the most challenging of all the challenges, which is skilled workforce. So we are expecting our workers to be fully using certain technologies, certain tools, and they are not skilled for it. And this also is impacting even more this capacity to scale certain technologies. Here is very important because they are ultimately the decision maker, and we have to make tools for the users, for the workers. And this process of creating a solution sometimes is not taking into account the right level of expertise, of readiness of the users. And that has been a challenge for the industry. But this also brings opportunities to address certain efficiencies. And here I'm pointing I'll bring a couple of examples. So first is around bringing together sustainable energy with automation, with operation excellence. And that's the opportunity that we're looking for to improve efficiencies. A second is bringing endpoint connectivity, base connectivity, which has been a challenge across the industry, but providing use cases, applications in the cloud. We're not saying, or we don't see that all the operations move to a cloud-based data infrastructure, but there are certain use cases that does make sense to be run in a cloud architecture. So it's this hybrid model where edge plays an important role is super key in our industry. Connectivity and also a cloud infrastructure bring this opportunity also to have an efficiency from the design of a plant, design of a building, if you will, up to how we operate and maintain. When you think certain value chains, we work a lot with a CPG or mining industries or water network, as you're going to see. Those who design a plant or design a facility, those industries are very different to those who actually operate and run it. So there's opportunity in the value chain to capture some of those efficiencies. And finally, how you bring those site experiments, good practices at the enterprise level. That's been super important. And again, one of the challenges that we see, and there's a lot being talked about that of the so famous pilots or good practices purgatory. Sustainability, so for the first one, sustainability, so why energy and automation? Sustainability is a super, it's beyond buzzword now. It's really expected by our customers, by our investors, by the society. So it's definitely a super important point to be addressed, and to be addressed not at the cost of profit. And that's when expertise on how to address it, it's so important. And we also see how we position sustainable operations with being a strategic part of strategy of different industries. That has been extremely key, how you cope operational efficiency, not at the cost of sustainability, but supporting a sustainable operation. So that's why we're moving. And we see out there some people calling industry from industry 4.0 to industry 5.0 now with sustainability. This doesn't really matter. I think what we see is that the expectation of our major stakeholders and the impact on the business. Then we see, and then we see again this opportunity of looking at when we take data and we connect different operations from the very beginning step of the value chain to they operate. You see operational opportunities to tackle efficiency and sustainability across the full value chain. And here I have some figures across that can be captured with real use cases behind, not at the cost of profitability. One example, it's a project that we did with Nestlé Waters, which is one of the largest water bottle companies. And here's an opportunity. The use case is really about how we first connect the data infrastructure that typically doesn't have one system. Think about all the ERPs, the SCADA systems, the MES, so on and so forth. On-premise systems, how you connect them, which is never painted in one single brand. They have multiple suppliers, multiple sources, even across the same facility, same plant, and how we bring this data with the right data interoperability with the data federation, and then we start making efficiency. And we started, the way we approach is always start with a very practical use case that can bring return. In this case, was all about making cleaning of the production line more efficient. A very specific use case, but you know what? You can do a very precise business case. It's going to be in the PowerPoint, but quite quickly you bring from the PowerPoint to the actual P&L. And this gives confidence to the whole facility management group, not also at the C-level, but first the facility management group, which are the ones who actually operate. So the attention to the user, the attention of those who are actually in the plant, it's super important, particularly to the point that I mentioned on skill gap and confidence, confidence gap as well. The point on CapEx to OpEx is an interesting one, and here we have to work with multiple partners that become companies or business that we have invested, because we do see this opportunity of making more efficient designs, but also bringing the data of those designs visible, accessible throughout the value chain. So really linking the designers of a plant, of a building, to those who actually operate and make this much more shareable across the full value chain, which is typically those facilities last decades, and have multiple value players across the group. How you make this possible? And here are some examples that we have worked more with RIB in the building facility management space design, but also Aviva, and now more recently with Osaisoft on the industry space. I'll skip this one for the sake of time, but and then finally, that's the fourth efficiency. It's something that we've done with Saint-Gobain, which is quite interesting. Really addressing the sustainability part. Again, how we connect the full facility of this customer, which happens to be one of the largest construction material provider in the world, You connect them to have good visibility of their carbon footprint, energy expenses, and then you deploy once the solution is well proven and you see the impact on the carbon emission of this industry, you can replicate. I shared a statistic in the beginning of the presentation, 32% of carbon emission is done at the industry level. Saint-Gobain is impacting the other part or contributing to the other part, which is the construction space, which has a much bigger impact than the industrial by itself. So working with those customers is a way also to address sustainability in the different parts of our industry. We cannot do everything alone, so partnering is key. And here I'm not thinking only about our cloud providers or machine learning analytics providers. I'm also talking about channels. Again, I always tackle this point of skills gap. Working with our channel partners has been extremely important, so we can actually scale and address, again, people already present in our value chain industries. And yes, indeed, we have to work with a new set of partners, developers, which is not common in our industry. So how to match and adapt, having this conversation with this new set of communities has been, it's really key to succeed. And for that, we create an environment for having those dialogues, but more important, working with them, which is called Chinada Exchange. There we can have, it's a space for co-innovation. So you describe and you have forums where we can work with end users, channel partners, but also developers, and you create, have ideas, discuss ideas, create solutions, and then ultimately help provide the environment where we can scale those solutions in a format of a marketplace, but also in a format of providing tools for building solutions like SDKs, APIs, so on and so forth. So have an environment to support the full ecosystem and the different communities in this space is super key to drive scalability. And then finally, what is the approach? So the approach is really looking at these disciplines, which is start from operational excellence, close to the decision makers at the operational level, but also the users, because ultimately those are the ones who are going to capture the value. We have to look for very pragmatic on the use cases, and typically what we've seen, we start from improving assets, improving operations, but again, let's not forget sustainability, which it is on top of the agenda, not necessarily evenly distributed, but when you cope both from the design, from the beginning of our conversations, has been extremely powerful. And of course, let's not make no mistake. Cybersecurity is a threat, is a key topic, is also source of challenges and misconception. And we also provide a good understanding what are those impacts, and we have a specific practice for that. I'll stop here, and I'm happy to take any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Carlos. That's good. Thank you. I think what I know about Schneider Electric is also that, you know, the solutions that how you're supporting your clients transitioning, you're actually applying in-house for your own manufacturing. So you're using what you're preaching, right?
Exactly. We say we are eating our own food.
Exactly, right? So I think there was a good first question, right, in terms of the importance of data quality in the context of IoT, right, and how you address this topic in your company. A question by Winfried.
Is it? Yeah.
Sure.
You talked a lot about connectivity and importance of realizing digitalization across the supply chain. We very much struggle also with the topic of data quality in this context, and therefore I would be curious how you address this topic in your company. How do you react to this topic?
Yep, that's really spot on. Normally, I don't say that we have. There is a shortage of data. There's probably too much. There's a shortage of good and quality data. In our company, let's be clear. We also face those challenges. We don't have our systems and solutions across all the facilities. But what we have done, and I think quite successfully, we established lighthouses. And in those, and there's one in France. There's 5 across the globe. 2 of them quite certified. And we use those lighthouses as, and we put all the effort to be the best in the lighthouse. And then from those experiences, once it's mature, we go and we run deployment phase. So there's a group in charge of this lean manufacturing transformation, which is in charge of identifying a roadmap of deployment of those practices. That's key. This is perhaps one part of the answer. The second part of the answer, more specifically around the data, we actually, besides implementing systems and try to improve the quality of the data, we actually employ a group or a dedicated group in the supply chain, in our own supply chain, a dedicated group of data scientists. And then we give them tools so they can solve it. Because the data, let's be clear, you can work, but the data is always, we're always going to have bad quality data. And this is also part of the data scientist work to address and to improve the quality of the data. So it's better that you also invest on the human capacity to work on the data and the way the data is, and of course give the direction, the vision on how best support your data creation, your information generation.
Mindful of time, let's still look at the question, what is typical ROI for IoT-enabled manufacturing excellence?
That's a broad question. It's very difficult to have a typical ROI. What I like, and has been very successful, is the case that I mentioned on with Nestlé Waters, which is, it's a very specific. When you look at the site impact, it's very small. But then when you look at the enterprise level, it starts being a bit more interesting. The more specific you go, like a improving cleaning process of a plant, ROI can be as nearly as short as less than a year, because it's very specific and it's a light, I would say, infrastructure to and process to support. But then when you look at more ambitious ones, then it can take. I've seen you use ROI around 7 years. So it really depends, and here my recommendation by experience is really the more precise, specific use cases you have, you can have a much better return on investment, and you can get the impact right away.
Okay. So other questions when the break? Yeah, please come to Carlos. All the questions he will be happy to answer. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your presentation. Thank you. So we talked about IoT, we talked about the connectivity. Now let's cover the robotization elements across the logistics and value chain. So I have a pleasure inviting Julian Broheller, Global Portfolio Lead, Consumer Segments and Service Robotics at ABB. Please.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me, and yeah, thanks for the invitation. Again, a little excursion today into robotics and automation, so not so much on supply chain tracking, but of course I hope I can inspire you today, and yeah, I hope I can share some of the excitement with you I have on the topic, and I'm very happy to introduce to you today automation and robotics. My name is Julian, I'm Global Portfolio Manager at ABB Robotics Consumer Segments and Service Robotics, but yeah, let's dive into it and start with a short video. As you can see, we have a lot of trends we are addressing today. And what we see is a more integrated triangle, where we have the consumer, the producer, and of course, the logistics in the middle. And with ABB Robotics, we address this integrated value chain, and we deliver value by providing automation, enhancing this integrated value chain. And how we do that is that, first of all, that looks good. First of all, we of course look into the trends, right? So what is really challenging our customers, and of course all of us, right? And you have probably seen these numbers. You are also consumers as much as I am. And for us, it was actually pretty nice when kind of, well, it was not nice when COVID kicked in, but it was good then to rely on services for food delivery and get everything at home to your doorstep. But of course, this put huge challenges to retailers, to stores who were offering these services before, but those were just used on very low quantity, right? And once COVID came in, and of course e-commerce was already there, people were more and more coming to these services. And then, those retailers had to really increase their capacities. And as you can see, in the UK, there was already a very high rate of adoption when it comes to e-commerce, also in the retail and the grocer segment. But especially in Germany and other countries in the European Union, we saw that, these trends were there, but not so much being used by customers and consumers. So what we do in ABB consumer segments and service robotics, it's actually very exciting because we look into the full value chain, from production of consumer goods up to the point of sales. And of course, what is in between, right? The logistics, and I think a lot of speakers today tackled that topic on the importance and how important it is to manage your distributors, manage your partners, and be really integrated with them. We see that you cannot anymore exclusively look into these pillars and just say like, okay, let's automate the production of consumer goods, then let's see what we can do in logistics, and then finally, of course, this is a bit more down the horizon, what we can do in restaurants and retail. So in ABB Robotics, we look into it in an integrated fashion and really see, okay, where can we add value, but also how do we ensure that these parts are connected, and how can we really also ensure to tackle trends that are coming, like direct-to-consumer, integrated e-commerce web shops, right? So really starting at the point of manufacturing to integrate that value chain. And this is how it can look like, right? And of course, it's only a schematic, right? It can also look differently, but what is so important is that already at the point of manufacturing, we today see huge customization, right? So you can have your name, for example, on a bottle of beverages. Then this needs to be distributed, and whatever type of distribution you might select, you want to pick it up, you want to have it delivered to your doorstep, or you would just want to buy it in the store. The supply chain needs to adapt, and of course, the automation, or let's say the infrastructure, needs to be there to support that. And of course, in the end, it needs to be sustainable and make economical sense, so you can still make money on that. And one nice example over here is, for example, Flex Buffer, that we see a customer using as an integrated kiosk. And this really means that this kiosk offers 24/7 sales where customers can just pick up their orders. And what you see here in the video is actually an integrated kiosk deployed in China, used by Huawei, where customers can 24/7 order and collect electronics goods. And this is just one example of a click and collect station that is integrated with the e-commerce web shop of this customer, and it only shows one mode of distribution. But I think it's so important to really show the difference, the different concepts, and really making sure that all these concepts are somewhat integrated, but also accessible to the customers, and then of course also used. Coming to that topic, what you just saw was a very small kiosk, right? And maybe for some of you, you already got a sense like, okay, maybe what fits in there, 200 totes, maybe 400, you compartment those, so you can store 800 SKUs, 800 items, which of course is very, very little if you look into your portfolio or the consumer goods you're offering or the consumer goods you and I see every day when we go into a supermarket. So of course, you always will have a centralized approach, centralized logistics, centralized fulfillment, centralized distribution. But then, of course, you need to look into smaller concepts, which you might know as micro or even nano fulfillment. And it is so important to look into both, because both concepts will need to coexist. But what has changed in the past is that in the past you saw economies of scale, right? So you build a huge distribution center, you really make sure that your satellite warehouses are around it, and you can make good use of the automation technology in there. So in the past, only huge fulfillment centers, centralized distribution centers were really eligible for big automation in order to pay off. But what we see today, and also thanks to robotics, is that even smaller concepts now start in paying off. And one great example was just this kiosk you saw in the previous video, where you saw a kiosk bringing out consumer goods. And of course, the big benefit over here is it's operator free, right? So it works 24/7. Consumers can just interact with it without any operator who is needed. And this, of course, saves a lot of cost and increases the business value. And what we see here is really a transformation. So concepts that in the past were just starting to pay off with 10,000 or 20,000 of capacities, you really see now reducing thanks to robotics, thanks to smart automation, if you want to call it like that. And let me start at the very left side. When it comes to warehousing, in the past you have really seen that warehouses really had a big footprint in order to make automation pay off. But of course, this has now changed thanks to scalable robotics applications. When it comes to sorting applications, which might be a bit more specific for the group today, but also over here, what you typically see is these huge conveyor belts going through very big facilities, sorting your parcels and your packages. Also, this has now changed. By using mobile robots, you can also implement much, much smaller sorting facilities that can even sort, let's say, 500 or 1,000 parcels per hour, where in the past, typical facility sizes were starting at 5 or even 10K capacity. And all this really allows you, of course, to move closer to the customer, right? Because the smaller your facility gets, the more it makes sense to move it to the customer, so you save money on last mile delivery. Of course, you can offer things like 1 hour delivery, and these kind of things you enable with this automation. And then, of course, we see also a lot of driving force behind machine vision, artificial intelligence. You all know these buzzwords, but what these really enable us to do is to equip robots with machine vision. And what it is pretty much automating a process that a human can do by automating the human vision, putting smart software behind it, which you could compare to the brain, and then having a robot executing these tasks. And this, of course, also allows you to put automation into much smaller footprints than you have ever seen before. And a good example over here is depalletizing, where just instead of these super bulky depalletizing or layer depalletizing concepts, these days you can also just simply use a robot equipped with machine vision, going into much smaller footprints and at the same time giving you much more flexibility thanks to the vision, thanks to the software that of course runs on updates and can improve to whatever carton or box it is seeing. And then last but not least, I already mentioned that fulfillment, where today we see companies really doing well on large fulfillment concepts, but automation and also integrated software really allows us now to go into smaller concepts and to make sure that these central and smaller fulfillment concepts can be successfully connected and good integrated. All right, there's another video. Perfect. So this is one example of Heemskerk, which is a fresh food producer. And I think this is really exciting because probably everyone in here is using that, right? So you see these shops at stations or airports where you can get this really nicely fresh made salads and bowls and pasta, right? And these things have a super short shelf life, right? If you look into the expiration date, what is it, 2 days, 3 days, right? There's salmon in there, there's fresh salad in there. And what we did over here at the customer Heemskerk is that we implemented a so-called buffer system where we use robots to already collect and stack the orders with the totes you can see over here, and through a flow rack, through a gravity rack, these orders come out at the end of this racking system and directly go onto dollies that can be shipped then to these small shops and stores, where consumers, as you and I, can buy these products. And this, of course, helps to really increase the shelf life, because that's, of course, where you lose lots of money. If you ship a salad which has, let's say, 4-day shelf life and it already spends 2 days in your warehouse, of course, the chance for selling it then decreases. And that's a very, very good example where robotics can really make a difference. So how do we do that? ABB Robotics, of course, has the big advantage being a global company, right? And of course, some of the concept you might have now seen, you would ask me like, okay, Julian, this looks very, very nice, but how will this pay off in Brazil? Or how are you going to implement that in Thailand or China? And of course, we see different benefits and needs per the markets, right? As said, you might have seen the restaurant and retail automation pillar, which of course is super exciting, but probably not as advanced as the automation we see in logistics and consumer packaged goods. But over here, we have so-called global solution centers, where we have really coupled expertise with our global coverage. And these global solution centers are covered all around the globe. So we have a global solution center in Brussels for logistics. We have a global solution center for packaging in Poland. We have a global solution center in Sao Paulo, Brazil, in the US and Shanghai. And over there, we really make sure that with the regional experience and application knowledge in the market, but of course also our global coverage, we can really see what concepts fit into that market and also make sure that with our experts, we are there to implement the right solutions. But of course, right, this is a very project-savvy business, and this needs to be enabled by what we call a profitable and reliable portfolio, what I'm responsible for. So really creating modular, flexible applications and solutions that you can combine to solve customer needs, as you have seen in the video for Heemskerk or in the kiosk. And then, of course, last but not least, robotics is very, very new to many of you, to many of us, especially in these new segments, right? Restaurants, retail, but also for some in logistics. And over here, we also offer showrooms, we offer demo capabilities, and of course, we offer testing and validation services to our customers who first want to test or see how boxes or parcels or items can be handled by robots, especially when it comes to machine vision, where we automate human intelligence. And to give a few examples, this is a very nice case of a palletizing system in Brazil with Nestle. And this is very, very cool because it is collaborative. And even though the robot you see, it's a huge robot, right? It's a massive robot, but you see it's open. So an operator can just bring in an empty pallet, the robot is palletizing that pallet, and then the operator is getting this pallet out. And that's exactly what I meant when saying, okay, you need to know your regional market and what the market needs. And of course, the labor costs in Brazil look totally different from the labor costs we see over here in Europe or Switzerland, for example. So also the application needs to meet these expectations, right? In terms of return on invest, but also the safety, right? So this is now a cell that is being tracked by safety scanners, by safety sensors to make the robot stop when an operator enters to get out a full pallet. And all this has been realized by our global solution center team in Brazil, making this successful use case, fitting in and making it very accessible and open to allow the operators bringing in and out pallets. And I think it's a very good example of this combination of covering the market, the regional market over there in Brazil, but at the same time leveraging our application expertise that we have globally. Another example is the robotic depalletizer that we recently launched. And this is an example of a so-called functional modular application cell where we combine machine vision with a robot and a gripper and, of course, integrated software to enable this use case. And this is really helping to already show customers what we can do and what we can automate and how we solve problems. So we are not only offering a naked robot, but we really show solutions that address specific tasks. And depalletizing, of course, it's a super common task, right? So everywhere where you ship a pallet, you will also likely need to depalletize it. Can be in a distribution center, can of course also be in the store. And this is something we are now automating with our own vision solution, with our own vision software and our robot, with specific grippers, really putting everything we have together, our application expertise, our nice robot portfolio, our expertise on gripping, and of course, last but not least, very important, the software and the machine vision sensor. Yeah, and that's it. So I hope I could catch up some time. I see I have still 5 minutes for Q&A. So yeah, please feel free to ask me some questions, but we can also, of course, catch up during the coffee break. Thank you.
Thank you, Julian. I think there is an interesting question from Ruth. I'm also asking myself the same question. What was the ROI of the example of the fresh food?
Of the fresh food? Actually, it was very, very good. I think it was 2.5 years. So it was a very, very good ROI, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The customer has now decided to scale that concept. So I think right now we're even planning 2 more of these facilities. Yeah.
Okay, so interesting point from Winfried, right? What are your thoughts on interaction between humans and robots, right? Especially getting served by a robot in a five-star restaurant is probably not what the customers want.
That's the last one.
Last one, yeah.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah, we have been actively looking into that. And I think, first of all, you need to see, okay, what's the value chain in there, right? Like, it's always the value chain, of course. And it starts in cutting the food. And honestly, I think you would not even know if your salad you ate has been cut by a robot or not, right? So this, of course, immediately qualifies for automation. Of course, it needs to be hygienic, scalable, have a return on invest, but this qualifies. When it comes more to the restaurants, right? You could think, for example, of dark kitchens, where also, right, when you sit in a restaurant, you don't necessarily see the chef or who's preparing your meal. And this is also already something we see, but it comes with some more complexity. And then there are areas which are, a bit easier to address. For example, waiter robots, right? These robots that drive around where you might put your plates on them and they help to collect dishes. And this is something where you have direct interaction. And of course, we see countries like in Asia and China where there's more acceptance, but then in Europe or North America, I think things might be a bit different. But maybe you shouldn't think about a five-star restaurant, but just think about maybe QSR, quick service restaurants, like, I don't know, KFC, McDonald's, Burger King. And I don't know who of you, I also don't like to go there, but sometimes there's no way around that, right? You know these kiosks, right, where you can already put in your order, right? This is already some automation, right? Just now think about this display where you can put in your order as a self-driving robot, and maybe it's not that much change anymore, right? And I think this is how we're going to see more and more automation in this restaurant context, but it will indeed take some time. So don't worry, there will be still humans around for the next 5 years, I'm pretty sure.
Perfect. I will pick up one last question, and for the remaining, please reach out for Julian to ask. But it's a good point from Ruchika, right? So on average, right, how long it takes to set up small robotic-enabled warehouse, and what are actually the risks and watch-outs?
Yeah, this is so important. When you talk about brownfields, you of course don't want to interrupt the operations, right? And in these days, with these crazy lead times and supply chain disruptions, of course, things always shift. But typically, when we talk about retrofitting, let's say end-of-line packaging, right, the pelletizer you might have seen at Nestle, we really target that we are inside in less than 2 weeks, so that we set everything up in a week or two maximum to really make sure that there's minimal intervention with the operations. Can even get faster, so it really depends on the complexity, but I think you should always at least consider a week, and that's already challenging, but of course, it depends on the type of application you want to install.
Perfect. Thank you, Julian. It was great insights. And
thanks for having me.
Again, we are actually switching to the coffee break, so use as opportunity to ask remaining questions to the speakers. We come back at 11 o'clock. Coffee break is served just behind your back. So I just want to ask you, when you take coffee and etc., just come on the front side. So we're just not queuing there. There have been also a few new people coming and arriving. Just a reminder, we are using application that you can download, and information about the application you can find in the booklet. And we use this application to ask the questions or any other relevant information about the conference. Thank you, and see you in 30 minutes. Welcome back. So we continue our event. So you hope you enjoyed the break. So now we start with the important topic, which we couldn't ignore and we shouldn't ignore, is about the sustainable transformation that will be presented by Dr. Philip Wesley from Kearney. Over to you.
Thank you.
Oh, I think it's switched on. Yeah. That's good.
Or can I also use this one?
No, I don't think so. Use this one.
Okay. Can you hear me well? Perfect. So, good morning, everyone. I'm really excited to be here today and get the opportunity to speak with you about this important topic, sustainability in supply chain. My name is Philip Wesley. I'm a partner with Kearney based here in our Zurich office. And yeah, time really flies. By now I'm working in the supply chain space for more than 15 years, mainly focusing on clients in the consumer goods and healthcare space. And when I was thinking of how to open up today's discussion, of course it came to mind to deep dive straight into the content of sustainability. But then, unfortunately, I need to say, we need to acknowledge current urgencies, war in Ukraine, crazy inflation, and the supply bottlenecks that we are experiencing now for around 2+ years. And these are very urgent topics that absorb a lot of capacity of people, organizations to manage the supply chain in a day-to-day setup. And that's, of course, rightfully to do so. But nevertheless, we should not neglect the important over the urgent. So climate change is a fact. And here you see a number of indicators to just leave it without any debate. It's happening and it needs to be addressed. And we see in a lot of trigger points and trends around sustainability. We have consumers that ask for more sustainability-oriented solutions, product portfolios. We have technologies, innovation that facilitate the change towards sustainability, and we also have the regulator, institutions that drive heavily for circularity, zero emission, and that all basically drives companies to commit to science-based targets. Over the past 10 years, we have increasingly seen companies committing to those targets, and by now I would say it's around 100% of companies that commit to those targets. And we are now in a state to say sustainability became a table stake. It does not differentiate you anymore in the market space. It just allows you to participate in the game. And that's actually also something that we saw in a study that we conducted recently around the Factory of the Year benchmarking competition. We asked 100 manufacturing companies. 100% of the organizations gave us a response, yes, we do have sustainability somewhat anchored in our strategy. And we also have measures, KPIs in place, all good. But when you really ask how happy, how satisfied are you with the progress that you do on sustainability, it's just 50% that are happy with it, or to be precise, 56%. And if I may ask you now to raise the hands, who is satisfied, happy with the progress that your company is doing with the topic around sustainability? I see one hand, 2, 3, so we are even below the 56%. I think that's quite scary, to be honest. So it's really about the question, to what extent is sustainability greenwashing, and what needs to happen to make the transformation happen? To look at this question, we of course also need to acknowledge the fact around how design criteria for supply chains evolved. Of course, the classical triangle of cash, cost, and service still maintains. It just got a little bit more complex. It got complemented by implications from the urgencies that we have seen, especially over the past 2 to 3 years. So you see the resilience topic in that bubble chart on the left-hand side, but in the centerpiece you see sustainability. Everything that we are doing now in supply chain should also aim to improve, to pay into sustainability. Everything around cost, cash, service, resiliency, but yeah, there is sustainability. And it gets operationalized around 3 areas. Number 1 is we need to reduce or even eliminate carbon emissions. We need to set up circular supply chains, and we also need to source in a responsible and sustainable way. And especially the last one pays into all the 3 meanings of sustainability, right? The economic, the societal, and the environmental definition of sustainability. And when we now double-click on this, what does that mean? We see that those 3 elements pay into or imply, have implications on the supply chain end-to-end, right? So when it comes to decarbonization, we have that in manufacturing, we have that in logistics, so basically all 3 scopes of sustainability. We have the topic around setting up a circular supply chain, which implies we need to work on the product portfolio. The input materials should be ideally in a renewable, reusable way. We should respecify our product portfolios to have the same functionality with less products, basically have less complexity to manage, but also look at the waste, right? Reduce waste, but also ideally even repurpose waste. Find new revenue streams for it to better manage it anyway. And then, of course, you have the sourcing aspect. And all these things that we are now have to manage along our supply chain has some boundary conditions, right? You have, on the one hand side, the regulator that is slightly raising the bar. You have your peers that are also raising the bar and that you need to deliver on. And, of course, you have public opinion. I would not say that the consumer is setting here any boundary condition based on what I said earlier, like sustainability became a table stake. The consumer will not be willing to pay anything more, right? But it's the public opinion. If you don't play the game, you differentiate yourself basically in a negative way. And all this has in the end structural implications for your supply chain. That means on the one hand side, we need to rethink our network configuration. We need to rethink the product portfolios with all the implications, where do I source from, and so on and so forth. And I also need to be bolder in leveraging technology. Here are now some examples across industries. So for instance, in the Factory of the Year, we regularly see leading examples of factories that manage to reduce energy profiles significantly. So we have here the example of Siemens, for instance, that managed in one of their factories to reduce the carbon emission by product by more than 40%. So they are really on a good track to reach a zero carbon footprint for the factory by 2030. We also see companies that when they invest in new factories, they do that with a very strong perspective on energy efficiency. So there are then basically factories that don't even have a connection to gas supply. So that's really a bold move, I would say. But it also makes sense in a way that you would not like to invest in some assets and have to depreciate them for 30 years. And then in 15 years from now, you realize the regulation has changed and you might not be able to use your assets in the way you want to. We see a lot of movement in the consumer goods industry. They are reinventing, I would say, their product portfolios, making all the formulations that they are having sustainable, being on the raw material, be it on packaging. They look into even zero packaging or a packaging reduction, right? Making packaging lighter so you save emission in transportation, for instance. A positive side effect, of course, is also that you save cost. We have an example of Caterpillar that has a company that is specialized on demanufacturing used construction material just to resell it. And then there is also the example of AB InBev, for instance, that managed or that repurposed some of its byproducts and unlocked basically new value streams or new revenue streams by supplying the fish feed industry. So there are a number of good examples that really paved the way, I would say, that should give us hope. And I'm very sure that there are many, many more, even in your company. And when we now look into what needs to happen going forward, I think this page is nothing new to you. It's just a reminder how it should be. I think it's fueled what also we see at our clients that fail to translate their sustainability strategy into operations. That might be that there is a lack of transparency, lack of partner leverage, competing priorities. Here we are again back to the urgent versus the important, or also operational alignment or disalignment. So what needs to happen, of course, is you need to have the transparency, you need to have the funding for it, clearly dedicated resources, budgets, Sustainability needs to be anchored in the product development process so that you don't work on your existing product portfolio and every year you get new products that are not meeting any sustainable targets. So all in all, I would say, yeah, operations is the key to sustainability. We are certainly living in the century of digitalization and technology, but in the decade of operations. Thank you. So, are there any questions?
Yes. So integrated supply chains are more and more driven by SQDC KPIs, right?
Yeah.
How do you see those principles affecting the sustainability journey?
I think it's the KPI dashboards that we are having going forward just got a little bit more complex. We need to address them on multiple dimensions. That basically ties back to the bubble chart that I showed earlier. And it's also really key that especially the sustainability topics get incorporated in the incentives that we see for management, right? It just needs to, we need to move away from this greenwashing and anchoring these things in the dashboards of decision makers and management.
To which extent do you think digitization and sustainability force go hand in hand?
That's a very good question. I think it's technology and digitalization in particular is a strong enabler for sustainability, right? I think it ties back to that transparency on your supply chain is a key enabler. On the one hand side, it gives you the transparency with limited effort, not just on your boundaries, let's say, but also on your suppliers, tier 1 and tier 2. It's basically the basis for doing any changes. It's the basis for defining measures. And it also unlocks be it now in logistics, but also in manufacturing, the reduction of emissions.
Question for me, actually, because you mentioned transparency. How you define the transparency in your conversations with the clients and the projects? What is your vision for supply chain transparency as such?
I think it's, on the one hand side, it goes hand in hand with the topic around resiliency, right? That you have the transparency on your loads. Yeah? Buzzword I would say is the supply chain control tower that gives you visibility on where are your goods. And also puts you in the position of anticipating risk earlier. Because I believe a lot of things that happen in the supply chain short notice to mitigate risks typically collide with sustainability ambitions targets.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from audience? Please, Patrick.
Thanks for the presentation. Sustainability is on the agenda for years, even decades. The last JEC report is showing that we are not progressing fast enough. What, in your view, could be the enablers to really have some breakthrough? Something that we need more regulation, so more constraints. I'm just curious to hear your view on this.
I think it's. I think your company is experiencing now something which many companies experiencing in the transition from, let's say, greenwashing, from let's define some targets, but then really delivering on it. And that basically means being very clear on the implications, on the investments that need to happen, being very clear on competing priorities, having here then the transparency, then also being able to make a trade-off. I think here you can typically use typical risk management approaches to make this balance clear, to make these trade-offs clear, and then also make a fact-based decision in the end. What we also see is there is limited partner leverage. There are a lot of players, companies that are in the same position. There are a lot of startups, technology providers that already could help you in the end, right? So it's a mixed thing of, as said, the transparency, looking left and right, what solutions are there, having the transparency, clarity on the trade-offs to make, and then really making a conscious decision, dedicating clear resources to it, dedicating a clear budget to it, and then basically monitoring, tracking on the measures that you define.
Let's take this as a last question for you. How does reduction of forecasting or brings together sustainability and SOP planning? Is there a benchmark or use case?
Yeah, I think that goes hand in hand what I said earlier, right? When it comes to the vision of transparency along the supply chain, right? When you have the transparency, the visibility, you are able to anticipate disruptions earlier, so you can basically avoid doing some quick fixes, some firefighting. So the measures that you define on sustainability really can run even in a setup that might be disrupted. So I think I think that's it.
And your advice to the clients when it comes to the making hard trade-offs between operational and cost efficiencies and sustainability?
I think it needs to be clear that sustainability is a long-term game, right? It needs to be understood as a GP accelerator, I would say, right? It's something that needs to happen mid to long term, because as we have heard, the regulation will increase, peers will also go forward and raise the bar. And then, of course, it's an investment that you need to do now. So it ties back to the trade-off that you have to make between the short-term targets that you are having with the mid or long-term ambitions.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
So sustainable transformation is absolutely very important in our agenda, but there is also another element, actually transforming supply chain organizations into more agile way of running the business. So I have pleasure inviting Winfried, the Global VP Logistics Bosch Powertrain Solutions, and he will share with us his wisdom and the key learnings from Bosch. Thank you, Winfried.
Yeah, thank you very much. Pleasure being here in Zurich today and giving you some insight on how we actually respond organizational-wise to the challenges. We've heard this morning already a lot about digitalization, about sustainability, about disruption of our supply chains. And we at Bosch, we thought about that, and we also want to address this topic via organizational changes, because we believe people and organizations are a vital part of this change, and therefore I would like to share today some lessons learned with you. But before we actually enter into that topic, a few words on Bosch as a company. Probably some of you know Bosch from household appliance, from heater systems. Bosch is one of the biggest conglomerates in Germany, $80 billion euro company with a global presence. And the core of the Bosch business is still the mobility solution, which means providing part solutions to our customers, automotive customers worldwide. And it makes about 40 billion revenue out of this 80 billion. And our division, the powertrain division, is the core business of the mobility sector with about 20 billion euros worldwide revenue. And what we do is we basically focus on providing solutions to our customers in the powertrain area, diesel injection system, gasoline injection system, as well as electrifying our powertrain solutions together with our customers. This is our core business, and this is also where Bosch came from. And you can imagine with the current issues on the market, there's a big disruption and transformation in our overall setup and our business in this area. Bosch is actually shaping the future in the area of mobility. So we focus on the topic of personalization of solutions in that area. We focus very much on connectivity in the mobility area. We see big potential of improving the mobility sector by connecting. We have a focus on electrification, both in the area of battery electric vehicles as well as fuel cell vehicles, and also the automation, driving automation. These are the core focus topics of Bosch in the future. And as I've said, we are right now entering to a new area of mobility. And all of us experience this change. Yeah? So we clearly see the change has started. In 2022, we see ourselves with a diversified powertrain, focusing still on the existing technology of the combustion engine. We still believe there's a lot of potential in there still of reducing CO2 emissions and other emissions. We also focus on hybrid solutions in this area, as well as the development electrification powertrain for different customers. Until 2035, we expect a significant rise of share of electrification solutions in this area. You've heard that the EU just banned the combustion engines starting 2035. This means also for our business a significant change. And until 2050, we believe that mobility can be CO2 and emission-free by using battery electric vehicles, fuel cell, as well as e-fuels, which is an important part of our strategy as well. Having said that, I will briefly talk about powertrain logistics. As I said, $20 billion euro sales worldwide. And this is our vision and our mission. We want to provide, based on stakeholder expectations, best-in-class logistics services for our customers as well as for our internal stakeholders. And to give you a little bit of an insight, what does that mean? A few KPIs here. We have about 50 production sites worldwide producing powertrain components. 2.0 billion of inventories worldwide distributed along the entire supply chain. We have about 1.1 billion of logistic costs spent worldwide to support our business. And we move around 1,000 trucks per day in order to supply to our plants or to supply to our customers. In terms of our strategy, we focus on 5 key performance topics. This is for sure the topic of inventory, because this is net working capital, or cash as we call it. And as Bosch is a privately owned company, not listed on the stock market, this topic of cash is a vital topic for us. So this is one of the core KPIs for our supply chain and logistic. The other topic, logistic cost, 1.1 billion is a significant amount of money which we spend on operating our networks worldwide, supporting customers and plants and making sure that we are able to deliver on time. Logistic quality, another topic. You need to make sure that this, in addition to our product quality, we also provide 100% logistic quality to our customers. This became more and more important in the recent years. Even with the connectivity now, it's very, very important that we provide this logistic quality based on customer expectation. Customer satisfaction, delivery performance, another key topic for us. And in addition to that, we just added in the recent years the topic of sustainability, because we also as a logistic organization have to face the issue of sustainability impacts. And having this in mind, we have defined for ourselves a couple of key enablers, as we call it, to actually drive these improvements. And one of these key enablers is our organizational setup, because we believe to adjust the organization to the transformation is a key topic, and therefore I would like to address this today to discuss with you. When we started the discussion, we asked ourselves 4 or 5 years ago, why do we need to address these organizational changes? Are we really close to our customers with our organization, with our supply chain organization? Are we flexible and adaptable according to the changing market conditions? Are we efficient and fast in the way how we do our business, how we bring in innovations? Are we truly innovative? And do we have a motivating work environment for our people? Key questions in order to address a transformation process. And we also looked at how does an organization have to look like in the future. And these are a few basic statements when we discuss this topic. First of all, we need to be competent in our organization. We need to learn, we need to know, and we need to do. We need to be innovative. Innovation usually comes out of an organization and people. And we also have to rethink the way how we're doing things in the future. And, as already mentioned, all our activities have to be based on a sustainable goal and have to be sustainable along the entire supply chain. What I would like to show you today is a little journey from a centralized supply chain organization to a highly agile and distributed supply chain organization around the globe. And I would like to also give you a little bit of an outlook what we still want to work on and how the future could look like. When we started our journey with our supply chain organization, we more or less, 4 or 5 years ago, we had everything centralized in Germany. Typical German setup. Our business was quite stable at that time. We had a stable customer base, predictable markets were predictable, so we had a quite stable situation. And this way we worked for many, many years. And it worked quite well. Our performance was good as well. But we realized that things are changing. And we started that, we said, we need to look at our organization. Where do we already have double structures? And we realized in many areas we have already created double structures working on the same topics. We had a very central steering towards the plant out of Germany. And you can imagine 50 plants around the globe, central steering, that takes a lot of efforts, time. It's quite time-consuming. Operative planning has been done more or less out of Germany for all the markets globally. Also something which we questioned at that time because we saw that things are changing on the markets. And we have started some changes in Budweis at that time in Czech Republic, but still majority of our organization was located in Germany. And then we looked at the changing conditions. This was the starting point. 4 or 5 years ago, it was obvious that Asia is the growing area, growing region. So we said to ourselves, we need to respond to that because we cannot do anything out of Germany. We need to be in Asia with our organization. The growing importance of joint venture, specifically in China, you need a much different collaboration. Some of you who have joint ventures in China know that this is quite difficult, so you have to be on site, you have to collaborate. And a big share of our revenue and also our results are meanwhile coming out of China. So you have to be on site, you have to work with the organization. Complexity, 50 plants steering centrally, nearly impossible. So you have to think about that as well. Performance program, we got a lot of pressure from the markets, in terms of customer expectations, cost pressure, headcount pressure. And this is something we considered in our journey, and we drafted a journey towards supply chain organizational excellence. So, after 4 years, where are we now? We basically have regionalized our entire organization. We have today about 50% of our associates sitting in so-called low-cost location. And this brought a big benefit in terms of cost. So we drastically reduced the organizational cost by more than 15 million euros, contributing to the EBIT results and the performance of the business. We actually distributed the operational planning out of Germany across the globe, being closer to the customers, being closer to the markets, being able to talk to the customers, responding to the customers. We introduced new areas like supply chain network design and data analytics, but we did not do that in Germany. We basically brought it to the countries where we actually got the expertise, where we found the expertise. For example, in India. So today we have our organization in more than 14 countries being distributed, still under one lead, but working together. And what is Then the next step towards an agile organization is that we're not anymore working in functional teams. We have basically defined so-called purpose teams, like, for example, logistic innovation, and the people across the globe are working in this innovation or purpose teams. So the advantage is that you can tap into the ideas and resources being globally available. The thing what you have to do is to connect these purpose teams and to make them work under a certain standard. And we have seen big progress in terms of ideas, innovation, speed, by using this global network and using this as an agile approach to develop solutions and for us in this area. But this organizational change also requires cultural change in terms of leadership. You cannot lead this organization in the way you are leading a traditional organization where you meet people every day in the office. You don't see these people throughout the whole year. And so you have to do it differently. You have to adjust your leadership style. And we said it's clear we have to be close to the customers. We have to trust and empower people. This is also a vital part, a vital step. You have to enable your organization. You have to trust them. You have to give them a framework, but you have to allow that they work within this framework, come up with ideas and solutions. And what has also changed is the way as you act as a leader. We are not anymore giving directions to the people. We are acting more or less like a coach. Coaching people, coaching the organization to develop in a certain direction, and to also introduce an open feedback culture, which is very important. Specifically, when you work in the international environment, one of our core topics is regular feedback in a positive leadership environment. So leadership in an agile and digital world is, for us, a cultural change. And this is also, for us, very important. It has to be in the context with the value of the company, and this is what we actually implemented and what we also rolled out. What are a few examples of this global community? You see here we have shifted a lot of tasks to Asia. So Asia today, with the organization being set up there, is responsible for global topics, which we then also scale to other regions. We have also implemented and introduced a global trading planning organization located in low-cost location and connected with a standardized and globally available IT architecture. So this global planning group is working together, also in an agile mode, being responsible for all our trading business. And in order to master this digital collaboration, you have to also look for new ways of collaboration. And COVID at that time has helped us really, because we were forced to use all of a sudden these digital solutions, these digital tools. And we've introduced a lot of, from our point of view, innovative way of working together, being creative. For example, virtual coffee corners or the quiz approach. So we have invested a lot in this digital collaboration. And for a global organization, this is also key if you want to establish something like that. New tools in terms of leadership. All of a sudden you have to lead people abroad. You don't see them very often, so you have to do it in a different way. I talked about changing of leadership style. This is also what has to be addressed if you do an organizational change process, that you address these leadership changes. So, a few key messages. When you look at the whole story, the world is changing, and from our point of view, organizational changes is necessary and mandatory. If you don't change your organization to the changing environment, you will fail. This is one of the examples, one of the conclusions for us. This is really key. Organizational transformation is change. You need to work with your associates on that. It's not that easy that you say, hey, I changed something, and then everybody enters you. You have to work with your associates and your organization. Digital collaboration is a key for us, as well as the leadership and associate engagement. And these, for us, are key success factors in bringing a supply chain organization into an agile and lean approach. And this is our journey. This is what we learned out of the topic. And the good thing is it also has significant business benefit if you do that. Cost reduction, speed, innovation, all of that. We have really gained a lot of advantages out of that. So this is our story. Thank you very much for listening to that. And I'm open for questions now. Thank you.
There are a lot of questions, actually. So for the sake of time, let's pick up with the first two. So, so how do you connect the international purpose teams, right? And how this standard of collaboration looks like at Bosch?
Yeah, there are different ways of doing that. So we usually have one colleague centrally who is orchestrating this. We invite the different experts in the different areas together. We have a standard agenda. We meet almost weekly. We talk through those agenda with innovation ideas. We do best practice exchange in this environment. So we use this kind of global network. Also, we use internal tools like Bosch Connect, which is a kind of Bosch Facebook approach, where we connect people together. So we have purpose groups in this Bosch Connect Facebook approach. And there you find a lot of exchange amongst people, fast, innovative, and it's not anymore necessary that they involve me in this kind of discussion. They discuss things amongst each other. Important, it's always based on standards and a frame which we have given so that they can work within this frame and that we allow and ensure also standardization across the globe.
Then there was a good question also from Francesco. How do you define standards that fit purpose teams?
How do we define standards? Those standards are derived out of our business processes. So when we talk about standards, we usually look at our business processes, our process chains, and in this process chains, we define what process steps should be standardized. Meaning, what kind of for example, parameters in our SAP system do we need to standardize across the globe our business? And we define these standards together with the organization. We publish the standards and we then also measure the compliance to those standards in order to make sure that you have a standardized and lean approach across the globe. And today, we call it 9 field metrics. So we defined 9 areas where we want to see certain standards being implemented. These standards are being measured. And we actually work with the organization globally that these standards are being adhered to and that we actually follow those standards.
Okay, then let's pick up the last one from Philip. But what was your experience actually at scaling the new way of working across the organization?
Very important is that you from the beginning start to communicate to the organization and work with them on understanding why you do that. There always have to be a purpose behind it and you have to explain this purpose. And if you get the buy-in from the organization in this purpose, then you will be able to actually also include your associates around the globe and then also make this innovation scalable. But people have to understand why you do it. If you don't make them understand why you do it, you will fail. And this is, for us, was a journey. It took a while to really explain to them what is the purpose behind that, why we are doing that. And this has also brought the success of changing the organization.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think there have been quite important points that Winfried mentioned also about the changing role of leadership team. And actually the leaders also had to act and get into the new ways of thinking and engaging the teams. So now we are going to have a quite exciting panel discussion that will be moderated by Victor Graf Dijon von Montenon from the Kearney, Partner and Managing Director. So he'll be joined by the practitioners of Frank Bauer, who is a CEO onshore wind international at GE, Wiebke Dietert, Head of Supply Chain from Witzug, and Thierry Dulong, VP Supply Chain Management at Hitachi Zosen. So please, the stage is yours.
Okay, so sound works, that's good. Hello, everybody. Very excited to be here. We already had a little chit-chat there in the coffee corner. We thought that probably it makes sense that we do a very quick round of introduction. So you have a little bit more to the people on stage than just the name and the company. And then we take it from there, and hopefully we get you a little bit still engaged. We all know that you're looking for lunch and probably are a little bit on the low sugar levels. Yeah, so we try to keep it exciting. That was our challenge that we accepted. So Wiebke, maybe you would like to start quickly with a short intro.
Sure, thank you, Victor. My name is Wiebke Dittert. I am with Zug in Zug, based in Switzerland. Zug, to the international colleagues here, is a manufacturer of premium household goods. We produce in Zug and near the Lake of Constance. We produce anything when it comes to ovens, steamers, and so on. I'm responsible for the supply chain at Zug. So my team does forecasting, production planning, replenishment of goods, and then also the entire internal and external logistics. We are 140 people now after or within the crisis. We were less before. And yes, as a traditional manufacturer within Switzerland, we face tons of challenges when it comes to the material situation, when it comes to shortages. Luckily, demand is very high. We benefit from COVID and everything that came with the pandemic. So yes, also my style changed, I guess.
Thank you, Wiebke. And I can confirm I have Zug at home, so it's still working. So
excellent.
Thank you. Thierry, maybe you're next.
Hello, everybody. Thierry Dulon. I'm French. I'm living in Zurich since 3 years now. I'm VP Supply Chain for Hitachi Southern Company. Hitachi Southern Innova is a global clean tech company dedicated to energy from waste as well as renewable gas. So we are the leader on this market, a real growing market. On this, we face, of course, as many of you, several challenges the last 2 years. And from my background, I've been spending more than 20 years in the power industry. I've been working for GE Renewable as well as Alstom Renewable Power for some years, dedicated to solar concentrated energy as well as geothermal and biomass business. So and I'm really happy to be here with you and looking forward to our discussion today.
Very good. Welcome. Frank?
And me. Frank Bauer. I'm the CEO of Onshore Wind International from the GE Renewable part. And look, as I joined in that role in September last year, my choice was either I can watch the energy transition and work in an industry where most probably many of you currently trend to get green. And now I'm responsible for a P&L really producing a product what truly makes the energy transition successful. It's wind energy. We are truly the product which has the best carbon footprint by itself, and therefore I'm glad. Why did I join that challenge from a supply chain operations perspective? I'm coming with a decent automotive background, more than 15, 20 years. And if I have the chance to do something good for stakeholder or for the P&L, and in addition, to leave something green for my own kids and next generation, that's proud. And why? Because it's really solving the energy transition.
Wonderful. Thank you for the introductions. And I think it also ties very nicely back to one of the speeches we heard before in sustainability. And when you check the agenda, obviously that's a common theme also, and also going to be one of the topics we want to discuss today. Maybe very quickly, just framing a bit the discussion. So you can see on the screen that the topic is the changing role of supply chain leaders. And I actually believe that it's a very timely point in time to talk about this. And I also did a little bit of research online, actually, on this prior to obviously preparing to today's discussion. And there's very limited, actually, to find about it. But when we look at the challenges that you also already referred to in your intro, and the challenges that we see almost everywhere across the entire value chain with many companies, and I'm seeing with many of my clients, it's actually really time to talk about what are the capabilities and skills that are changing in the future for supply chain leaders. Right? We are coming from a, let's say, probably one of the most stable times in human history, focusing very much on operational excellence. And I mean, I grew up, so I'm a kid of the 80s, even if I look much older. But basically, for me, after the Cold War ended, it was really a time of peace, right? And now we are faced with aggressor and war challenges in different parts of the world. We are pumping up our military expenditures, but this also impacts, obviously, logistics. This impacts inflation. This impacts the political agenda. So there are a lot of challenges that we couldn't have imagined, even going through COVID for more than 2 years. So I think the profile might change also a little bit of what we are looking for as supply chain leaders. And we had, in one of our prep calls for the session, also alluded to 5 themes that we are seeing that might impact this discussion. I just quickly introduced the 5, and then let's see how far we can get in discussing those. The first one is on risk management. I think a lot of what I just explained is alluding to this fact. The second is on vertical integration. How can you secure supply to produce your goods in time, in full, in the future? The third would be digital. The fourth, sustainability. And the fifth, as a basically umbrella, is war of talent. So maybe starting with risk management, Frank. So we heard the challenges that you introduced also, but also the opportunities. But do you see that that risk and risk management for supply chain leaders will become different and even more important in the future?
Oh, quite a loaded question. I could now go to the techniques we have and how we monitor early risks and proactively, how we purchase external data in sourcing, how we monitor currently, I would say, logistics service provider and potential risks out of harbor delays, and we all face the same story. I would say I take that we are in the people session more as a question, how does Frank and handle the situation? I tell you what I tell my early generation leader currently is be super comfortable to be uncomfortable. I think we are facing currently unique times, and that is something, keep it in mind. If you're engaged in your personal development, I tell my early in career leader, be comfortable to be uncomfortable. That started by myself. So one of my previous employer brought me 2010 to Brazil, and I can tell you, leading Latin America by adjusting due to political instability, due to currency, more than 12 times the price list between countries in there brings a lot of volatility. So using that word of VUCA, I can say nothing is more dominant and will remain as managing change. So for me, risk goes in line with be adaptable, be open to change, be comfortable to be uncomfortable. I'm coming from the French part of Switzerland. I'm going to the mountains. I didn't achieve what I wanted to do at the weekend. I need to redo it again. So fail early, redo it, fail even sharper, and fail on a higher scale.
Thierry, how do you see that when you maybe also looking for new talent that is coming into your organization?
Well, this is clearly something which is getting more and more important to have people. Whenever it's about to select people joining your team, definitely we need people who are risk averse, not taking risk today. This is not the kind of people we need in certain positions. People who have this ability to think on the long term from a strategic way of thinking the next step for the company, who has this ability to be cross-functional connections, because definitely, well, we talk about supply chain, but in different countries, supply chain is bringing most of the margin of the company. So if people in your team in supply chain have no clue, who doesn't have any interest in the strategy of the company, it might bring problems on the long term. So that's why smart people, it's very important, and definitely having this agility as well to change yourself whenever the market is changing, as we have been facing the last 2 years. If people that have this capability to change, this flexibility to move from a statement as per today on a new strategy that need to be decided on short term. So clear, it's difficult to find the right talent that we need, but this is a kind of profile that we need in our teams.
One of the responses that also me personally I'm seeing with many of my clients, and as a disclaimer, I'm a consumer goods guy, is that they are looking to secure supply also via and managing their risk via actually vertically integrating. Is that something that you are seeing also? Does that also change maybe the set of skills that are required then from a supply chain leader in the future, tapping into maybe undiscovered territory in some instances? Wiebke, any perspectives on that?
Since with vertical integration, we are very quickly in confidential information areas. I would like to change maybe the question towards partnerships, because partnerships, not only internally but also especially externally, are so important during these times of uncertainty. And we've figured so many challenges, and it's so important that not only us but also our colleagues understand that we are all in the same boat. Not as supply chain leaders, not in Switzerland, but really globally, we're all in the same boat, facing similar challenges in the end. And the risk management parts where we are very successful is where we are very strong within the partnerships, or where we build the partnerships even stronger throughout the past month or years even. So I think that is really a big part. And then when we talk about talents, I think this is also a lot about the mindset of people that we are recruiting. I mean, everyone can have really like a lot of certificates, maybe 2 master degrees even, and it's super impressive on the paper. But then when you start talking to people and when you try to build a relationship with them, they need to build relationships internally. They need to build stable relationships externally, and really build trust. So we are also looking for this very special mindset, which is also then able to deal with the risks, what you said, Frank, or the uncertainty. And uncertainty really goes against our nature. As human beings, we need certainty. Everyone to a different level. Frank and I might be fine being attached to a rope on top of a mountain with 200 meters below our feet, lots of air. Oh, and then for other people, certainty means standing here on the ground, no rope attached. So that is also a big change, I think, because it's also against planners' nature to work with uncertainty. They like constants instead of variables.
Something what immediately kept in my mind circling as just listening to you, I tell you, you said at the beginning the operational classics, might erode. I think not, because these, stable foundation need to be there. We need structured problem solver, and that paired with the agility and all the dynamics, what you just said, I would say I'm looking currently, if I hire, for the potential and less for the performance and the skill set. It's really about being structured problem solver. And the Lean Foundation, for example, I'm a firm believer. I'm the sponsor within Lean, within the corporation. I truly believe into that, even in today's time, and now enriched by data and enriched by new competencies. And that with being a bit, be comfortable to be uncomfortable, do things what you just said. No. Next generation leader.
If we shift gears a bit to sustainability, and we can hear this buzzword left, right, and center, right? And even on stage today, also people talked about sustainability. Is this something that, given all the other challenges that in supply chain are currently on the table, which got a little bit, and proactively phrase the question a bit provocatively. Is it a bit deprioritized at the moment for just maybe a short period of time? Or is this something where also thinking about the changing role of the supply chain leader, this becomes even more and more crucial for success?
I can take it.
Thierry?
Well, indeed, clearly this the sustainability remains a top priority. The point is the market has been changing recently, so even though it remains a top priority, we have even other priority coming on top at the moment, which is delivering. And nowadays, we are facing difficulty to find materials, to find some main resources. This scarcity of resources oblige us somehow to change our supply chain. I mean, definitely the war did not help us at all. I mean, we had several suppliers in Russia and Ukraine who were bringing us the steel material. Now we need to fully change the supply chain. That means we might have to go to China, to India, and then to import the material from there is going to impact the CO2 footprint. So, as a matter of fact, we look for sustainability, but since our project has to be delivered, we need to put that as a second priority until we will face better times.
Wiebke,
I can only agree. The ability to deliver, obviously, it comes first, is always our first priority. What's very interesting there, and sustainability obviously still is also a big priority that we need to do aside. But just like Frank said, there are so many top priorities which we need to handle. Obviously, before you looked at OTIF, OTD, all these classical KPIs, and now it's really the ability to have for us products either on the shelf or ready to deliver within a very short turnaround time.
Is energy there a little bit of a different animal, also given all the discussions at the moment on the energy crisis that we are facing? Is that sort of a bit of a different segment in the sustainability discussion, or same?
So I will not give any kind of political statement now regarding how energy conversion runs by country. We can be glad in Switzerland to be a hydro country. There, at least we are far more advanced than others in the European Union and the rest of the world. But back to sustainability, I need to say not much different. Currently, we are facing a huge demand. Demand management, capacity management plays a major role in combination of being capable to build up the required capacity. But I can truly share with you, and that's not just spoken for GE, for the wider wind business, that it's not a major capacity shortfall on the manufacturing side. The shortfall of not getting enough wind energy out, either onshore or offshore, is the permits, and that is something else. But within the definition of sustainability, I tell you, it takes a massive role. The frame is set. We need to lead by example. While facing similar constraints as you, the steel need to be shipped, the tower need to be welded and built up in the field, while the machine head and the blades to be assembled.
Maybe one of the adjacent themes to sustainability, and I believe somebody from the audience asked a question beforehand, if sustainability and digital are interconnected. Probably the quick answer is yes, and then the more difficult is how. But when we talk about digital, this has been around for quite a while, supply chain, right? I mean, I experience it with my clients as well. We're looking for data scientists, data analysts. They wanted to beef up their analytics capabilities, and having people that could also interact, to your point, Wiebke, with the digital ecosystem and partners much, much better. Not only being a user, but actually understanding what you're buying into your supply chain ecosystem. How do you see this evolving? Is it very connected to the war of talent that you have to be actually quick in order to also gain a competitive advantage by hiring the right talent? Wiebke?
As a very traditional producer at Zurich, we face an additional challenge. We've got lots of our colleagues have been quite long with the company, are very loyal. Zurich is a very nice company to work for. And we've got very good products, end of ad. And really the digital transformation starts in the head of everyone. And we need to make sure, while we are in all this additionally, that we keep people engaged, that we see where we can develop people. And this often is seen, or I think we trust too much that people come from themselves and want to develop themselves, want to go further. What you said, that people need to understand not just what they're buying, but how to integrate that into existing processes, into existing software, and so on. So we need a deeper understanding of software, and we need a different kind of workforce. What we studied when we studied should not be the same, but should be totally different today, because today we need IT people. And it's, especially in logistics, it's very difficult to transform these logistics people to digital averse people. And I can understand that not everyone at a certain age especially wants to go that way. So the question is, how do we develop them? How do we take them with us along the way?
I think that's a brilliant point. This upskilling of also the existing colleagues and labor forces in the company. How's that with your company, Frank? How they are dealing with this question on not only onboarding new talent, but actually also upskilling the existing?
So first, I would say it's always nice I'm a data person. So the first thing I did, mapped a bit my population. And if you just build a few groups by generation, and then you have the ones where you know in 10 years they will transition in a different life phase, what is most probably their retirement. And then you build a population, you map the capabilities and the competency by cluster. You can only reinforce how important it is to engage with universities intensively to get really the ones which you need, next generation leader. And then you have the next population where it's tremendously upskilling in regards of competencies. And we always should have in mind 80% of the learnings we learn most efficient on the business, in the job, while not just going to trainings and sending them. So it's important to find the needed pilots to engage these population, that they maximize their learnings. So here we even build a bit of a supply chain academy internal with new competencies which are required for the future. So you need to work through all generation of workforce, which are essential, and find the right recipe per generation, because I think my experience, there is not the one-size-fits-all answer.
Anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, this digitalization is clearly, I cannot agree more from what my colleagues here have said. Definitely, I mean, for nowadays, without digitalization, it makes our life too much complicated to take a quick decision. Therefore, I mean, the newcomers, the new geeks are really a help for us. I remember bringing some trainees who have a high competence in IT, but they solve us so many problems because they were so aware about the new tools. And then it's worse that nowadays that we really understand upside down the tool we use. This is very important.
Have you also seen difficulties in actually the adoption then? I mean, some companies, they give trainings and so, but for people it's sometimes more of a burden, and then they still go back to the traditional way actually of the ways of working. Is that a topic at all, or?
Well, I mean, the aim is we need to learn from the others. So the intention there is that if we bring newcomers who would sometimes have no clue about the industry itself, we bring them for some competence that we don't have. Therefore, we need to learn from them, right, to change.
So the last, let's say, overarching theme that we had identified together was war of talent. Obviously, this is sort of embedded in all these topics that we just have discussed. But one topic that, of course, is also included in war of talent is not only to find the right capabilities, but also then doing this respecting D&I standards that we all would like to actually see more in the companies. And also, when I look around, we want to see this more and more everywhere, right? How are your companies dealing with this? Especially the demand at the moment seems to be extremely high in the market to find the right talent, but then also to find the right balance. Good looking to you. What are your perspectives?
Yes, we are at war in so many ways, huh? Yes, it's a very interesting market, and talking to headhunters, talking to agencies, the picture is just mirrored there. They can confirm the impression that we have business-wise. That it's first of all really difficult to get the right people, the mindset, not the certificates, not the master's degrees, but really the 80% that you learn on the job, plus also the intrinsic motivation to go a step further, to deal with that uncertainty, to think in scenarios. And that's also one really important point. Like, it won't be that way, and we just need to plan in that direction, but we need to have plan B, C, and D, and maybe even E in the drawer of our, well, if we still have drawers, most of us don't have drawers anymore at our desks. Yeah, it's also very interesting to see what kind of people we can attract. Sometimes, or one of the colleagues that I just hired was very young, beginning of the 20s, and super expensive. And I thought, oh, this is a big risk. I had potential. But then he was really, really good. He had really deep knowledge in the system that I needed him for. And he just hit it off. It paid off, even if it's 10,000, 20,000 bucks more. Yes, okay, if they really pay off, that's fine. I don't just hire anyone at the moment, because there are lots of applications, but I rather wait for half a year still, or even longer, to get really the right person, the right mindset, instead of just getting someone.
Inflation shows even in salaries, apparently. Yeah,
that was a couple of months back. Know your value.
Okay, great. Anything to add? Otherwise, we can move to the questions. Frank, anything on your mind?
What I currently have most in mind, look, we immediately talked about recruitment. You know, there is a phase before, and that is called retention. I think currently in the war of talent, you know, just try to avoid it as much as possible to really work with your high potentials, because you want to retain them. Because as soon as you need to go external currently, as you rightfully said, it's getting pretty expensive. So there is this pre-phase, and we in supply chain, look, there is nothing more interesting to be in supply chain right now. We have the perfect storm, you know, we have plenty of CEOs currently being with a former supply chain background. That's for me just, and stay close to the people, and then retaining and hopefully not going to the market to pay more.
Nice, very good. Let's see if there are any questions from the audience, which gives us a little bit time actually to engage and also in a dialogue with you guys, hopefully.
Thank you. I think it's a little bit controversial when we talk about that this disruption to supply chain contradicts sustainability. Is it not upon us as leaders to ensure that even a disrupted supply chain is sustainable?
Are you addressing the question to?
Yeah, well, I think to the panel. I think we have a good panel up here representing also manufacturers.
Could you rephrase the question, please?
We talked about that the disruptive supply chain is basically contradicting our sustainability efforts. How do we ensure that even during disruption, we are sustainable? How are you as manufacturers managing that? Because disruption is here to stay. It's not gone tomorrow. So how do we manage that?
Well, as Zurich is going through a large transformation at the moment, since a couple of years, and we will still be ongoing. We still be going through that transformation. We rebuild our factory currently in the middle of Zug, which is one of the most expensive places on earth to produce ovens and steamers. So we are building a vertical factory. At the same time, we are building our own energy hub to produce our own energy. The buildings that we are setting up there are already built within an eco-friendly framework. So we are doing lots on the side. And like I said earlier, being able to deliver is really the key for supply chain, but we need to work on our sustainability on the side. And I think this took us some time to realize that we weren't as active anymore as we wanted to, due to the operational challenges. And what I did a couple of months back was that I really restaffed the strategic part of my team. So we really need to separate the operational workforce from the strategic workforce and have people really aside from all the firefighting, because it's a lot of fires that come up that you need to put out, and they will never find the time in order to work on strategic sustainability issues. So we restaffed there. We've got more people being out of all the huzz and buzz that we have there, and that seems to work really well, and is also a really good sign for the operational workforce, which is the operational colleagues are really just in that tunnel, producing, delivering, and all that. And it's good to see all these successes on the side, because also how do we didn't address that subject, but how do we define success in supply chain management at the moment or for these coming times with even more uncertainty, and how do we celebrate that success?
Does that answer your question? Okay, great. Anybody else?
I have a question regarding the war for talent, which is clearly happening right now. The question is, why do you think in the supply chain and logistics, especially in the top management, there are so few women? So there's mainly man-dominated industry. Is it something to do with the mindset, with the skill set, or is it a different explanation?
The eyes went in your direction, but I would like to build.
No. I think it would be actually good to hear, both or triple opinions on this. Yes,
Look,
thank
we
you
have
for the question.
we have one advantage sitting here. We are looking to you. I think that room is pretty representative for our industry.
Yeah.
And we can grow diversity further. My personal opinion, I'm a strong believer into. Just even taking it not just to supply chain, also into manufacturing. Sometimes we are in an industry where we do heavy lifting. You need to be, I would say, equipped to do your job daily in a trained environment, but sometimes it helps to do it different and from a different angle. And then there are smart solutions. So I am a firm believer into diversity. Managing international, for me, diversity is not just a matter of, female, male. It goes far above and beyond that. And I can only encourage you, if not already done, make it to a top priority for yourself. Business benefits. And I can share plenty of example business benefits. But we have something to do in supply chain and operations.
Fully agree. I mean, from my team on the supply chain, my supply chain management team, I try to ensure that they have some kind of diversity. And I have to say, it's not easy just to receive the right CV corresponding to the position. If we want, definitely, even if we are wishing to have the right competence and to have the diversity, if we have few candidates, then it's making things more complicated. And I don't think, at least here in Switzerland, I don't see that there is any pushback to have a mix and to have more women on senior position. I see many companies looking for that.
What is our female representative thinking on stage?
It is very interesting. I tend to get frustrated with that as well. I have group lead positions open, and I've got probably 95% male applicants. Swiss male applicants, sorry, because if we talk about a male-female ratio, that's one thing. But to me, diversity is really about cultures, upbringing, different experiences, different mindsets, also. And that's a big thing we all need to work on, so that we can learn from each other and really, get innovations or get more innovative. I don't have the reasons, because I don't get to talk to all those women that don't apply for those positions. I'm a working mom myself. I'm very passionate about what I do, and I'm very flexible when it comes to, like, if there are other working moms, then I'm very flexible. Also working dads, by the way. I have, I think, the highest ratio of part-time working dads at Zurich. Does anyone have the reasons? Maybe the audience is wiser.
I think that supply chain and operation, it's a very tough environment for a woman in terms of day-to-day management. And on top of that, you have to cope with your mom's life, you have to cope with your personal life, and at senior position, as we have, you have to cope with the workload. That is something that is in operation, in supply chain, much more high, I can say, much more high. You cannot, if you have an issue, you have to manage it, because you cannot say, I will postpone it for another time because I have something else to do. Then I guess that this is about time management, mainly.
I totally see that. I totally see that. Yet there are so many working dads here, I'm sure. Do you guys have more than 24 hours in a day?
Unfortunately not. We wish.
do you know the name of your kids? I tend to get very sarcastic sometimes. Huh?
No, but it's definitely, I think what we all agree on is that it still needs to be worked on. There's still a lot of room to actually improve in this, but that there's no easy, unfortunately still, no easy way to achieve that. And probably it even goes back already to the universities on the ratio. So, yeah.
As a matter of fact, I have 40% of my people who are women, and very, very few are eager to take more responsibilities.
I was really interested to hear what you just said about them being not so eager to take responsibilities. In my company, we did a poll. We have an issue at director level, so women get to associate director level and then they're not making the next level often. And the feedback was, yeah, women don't want to do it. It's too difficult. Being a director, it's too much work when you've got a family and so on. So we said, okay, let's ask these women. So we did a survey and we asked all of the women at the level 3 and at the level 4, which is the associate and director level. And really, there were like less than 10% who were saying we don't want to get there. So I think there's maybe an assumption or maybe a way that we tell people they shouldn't want to, or something that is holding people back.
Well, probably, making some investigation might help, but I'm just referring to whenever we open position of management, few women apply. That's the point. Probably yes, we might ask from a bottom-up approach what would make themselves applying for more seniority position. Probably yes.
I think this is a very, a topic we can probably continue for a while. Also, how to encourage the female talent even more to also then speak up about what they want to achieve. So I think there's a lot also still to learn for all of us. Is there any other question on anything besides the the gender question. No.
Maybe Victor, sorry, just to make the reconnection back to our subject, the leading role of all of us as supply chain leaders. And the gender discussion is part of it. I think in general we need to be much more flexible. If we want to attract talent and if we want to develop people, we need to be much more flexible with everything we give. We don't just give work and pay a salary, but if we want flexibility from people, and then we also need to give flexibility, and we don't just, or especially the younger generations that will hit the market in a few years or now already, they won't just sit there and work and have a career which they can put on a CV, but they have totally different intentions. And part-time jobs, for example, that's not just a question for parents, that's also a big question for lots of my friends without kids. And we need to know and understand that that will be the future, that we can't just go like this anymore either.
Thank you very much. I think it summarizes very well what also the future talent demands from us, future employers. I see this also in our industry quite a lot, actually, that there's a certain expectation of flexibility that changes very rapidly. So I fully agree. I think we are finishing actually the session on stage now. I see a red screen, time's up. But I enjoyed it very much that we had this discussion today and also your questions. I think that one maybe quote that stays in my mind probably a little bit longer from you, Frank, is to feel comfortable in the uncomfortable. So I think this is how you phrased it. Those are very uncertain times that we are living in. They're a long list of challenges and priorities that we have on our list, especially in the supply chain space. There are expectations to you guys that are higher than ever. So thank you very much for carving out time for the discussion today and being here with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Very insightful conversations. So you all made it to lunchtime. So we announced the lunch break that is going to be until 1:30. So the tables here, the food is behind where we've been enjoying the coffee break. And yeah, we see each other at 1:30. Thank you. Thank you, Victor. Thanks, everyone.